Welcome into another live on location edition of Daily Faceoff. Live, I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. He's Frank Seravalli. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Live from La Cage in Montreal. Frank, just over my shoulder, you see Gate 21. We are steps away from the ice surface here in Montreal on final tune-up day at the Four Nations Faceoff.
Let's go. Enough previewing. We've been breaking down these rosters since December 4th. We've been talking about who's going to make these teams since long before that. Finally here, media day today at Bell Center, and I'm just amped up. Let's get this started, because here's the thing about Four Nations Face-Off, such a short tournament. It's not necessarily about who plays the best or who has the best team. It's who can get off to the best start. Yeah. Canada, Sweden on Wednesday. There's some legit urgency already to start the tournament.
Yeah, like right from the get-go, they're called round robin games. They will feel like playoff games with how much is on the line every single night. We're going to be joined by Carter Hutton in a little bit. We're going to talk about the goaltending matchups in this tournament, who has the edge as each matchup kind of goes on and through the round robin. But first, Frank, let's do a little rank 'em here, and let's take one more big picture overview look at this tournament. We're going to go forwards, defense, then goaltending, and I want you to rank the four countries in order of who's the strongest. So let's start up front with offensive firepower, where I think it's clearly Canada at number one. Do you agree? And how else do you go about your four?
Totally agree. Look, this is a star-studded, this is a juggernaut lineup. Yeah. So we're going to go Canada 1, US 2, Sweden 3, Finland 4.
I think where maybe there's if I could try poke holes in the 3-4 argument of it, I love that depth on the wing for Team Sweden. You mentioned yesterday Lucas Raymond. What a season he's having. What a luxury it is for Sweden to have him on line 3. There is something about that center depth, though, on Finland. Like, Alexander Barkov is so much better than any other center that Sweden can throw out there. That's the only part I kind of wrestled with a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe a fair argument to make. And I do love the way that Finland can think their way around the ice. I mentioned in our full Daily Face-Off live preview show for Four Nations, which we did on Monday night here in Montreal, a full hour breakdown if you missed it. They're brainiacs. Yeah. Like, I'm telling you, legit hockey Mensa members, that these guys can really put that to work. So I could see that if you wanted to flip Finland, Sweden, but I think the U.S., the fun part about this tournament is that they're nipping at the heels of Canada at the forward position.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. So then when we get to the blue line side of things, Frank, I just talked about how, hey, maybe I would have Sweden at number 4 of the forward group. Maybe there's an argument. There's also an argument on the defensive side that Sweden's number 1.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I might be swayed, but it's the Cale Makar difference maker for me that just gives Canada a slight edge. So I'm going to go Canada 1, Sweden 2, US 3, Finland a clear 4. Finland might as well be 82nd. Based on the way that this is shaping up. We mentioned with the injuries that they've had, just being decimated, Miro Heiskanen, Rasmus Ristolainen, you take out 2 of their top 6 defensemen in a really thin defense core for Finland. Good luck. I mean, it's going to be tough sledding for Finland. So a clear 4. Maybe you might think I'm down a little bit on the U.S.
Well,
at 3.
Let me ask you, you said the Cale Makar difference is why you had Canada at number 1. The Quinn Hughes difference. Where does USA rank if they have Quinn Hughes?
I think they're 2.
Okay.
I would push Sweden to 3. As good as Sweden is, with the size that they have, with the toughness and meanness that they have. Look, I mean, when you can go Victor Hedman, you can go Matthias Ekholm, Erik Karlsson's on your third pair. You're really well situated if you're Sweden, but I don't know. It's something about the U.S. defense core for me missing Quinn Hughes. I think a serious material change in the odds of who's going to win this tournament with the U.S. not having their Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. So we mentioned Finland, a very clear number 4 on the blue line. Let's put on our Carter Hutton hats here and quickly talk a little goaltending. It's Canada that's clearly 4 when it comes to the goaltending.
It's the U.S. that's clearly 1, and by such a wide margin. Again, it's like 1, and then everyone else is 6. That's how big of a difference there is here when you're ranking these. So I would go US 1, Finland 2, Sweden 3, Canada 4. I'm kind of, as you can see, a little bit of a debate for me between Finland and Sweden, but Gustafsson's been really good and pretty consistent. And if you need to, and he's healthy, Linus Ullmark is a great choice at 2. UC Saros he's got, I think, the better pedigree but he's been worse as a goalie this season for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, if you're doing the what have you done for me lately argument, then it probably is Sweden at number 2 and Finland at number 3 with UC Saros. We'll have more on that in a little bit when Carter Hutton, the former NHL goaltender, joins the show. For now, Frank, let's play a little fill in the blank. And yesterday when I was talking to a few different players at the media availabilities at the practice facility, they were talking about how, hey, they had Super Bowl parties, they went out for dinner and all that stuff. Let me start you with a fill in the blank. What did you make of that photo Team USA put out with some absolute legends in it?
Look, I think a really important thing, you're trying to get your team to come together in a really short tournament. Some of these guys know each other. Some of them have had success together. But I was just down at Media Day and listening to GM Bill Guerin talk about, the thought process to bring in Mike Eruzione and Rob McClanahan and Mike Modano and also to have Guy Gaudreau there, which we'll touch on later in the show. You got to know who paved the way for you. And I think it's without question that this is the best Team USA roster that's ever been assembled. The deepest, the strongest. You've got strength at so many different positions. But you got to understand the stories. And, look at this photo here. I mean, to hear Mike Eruzione and Rob McClanahan talk about the stories of the 1980 Miracle on Ice, most of the guys in that photo have only ever seen the movie Miracle.
Yeah.
These guys aren't actors. These are the real deal. And so to hear them talk about what it means to have a team come together in a short tournament, and also the other inverse of this, which is how much pride those old guys have in this crop of current American players, I think that means a lot.
Yeah, and listen, I know there are some fans who are doing the pessimistic, made-up tournament, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, listening to the players talk, and I'm telling you, the players after having something like this does not have the vibes of a made-up, make-believe tournament. There is something on the line here for these guys.
Well, what's on the line for the U.S. is the ability to make a statement that this American team and USA Hockey is surpassing Canada on the international stage. I don't know that it'll ever happen, truly, based on the talent that Canada is churning out. From a numbers and statistical perspective, you would think that would be the case, just population-wise, number of players, ranks, all these things kind of changing in the U.S., but you got to go out and do it. And it's not since the 1996 World Cup of Hockey that's happened for Team USA, and that means there's a lot on the line for this American team to make a statement. You can win World Junior, you can go back-to-back if you want, and great progress being made there, but you got to do it best on best. And they haven't. Let
me ask you a Team USA fill in the blank then. The Americans win this tournament if blank.
If they can get the puck off of Canada. That's the mission for any team in this tournament. Kill plays, stop the cycle, defend well enough, and be opportunistic. They're going to have the puck a lot, and it's going to be up to the U.S. It's going to be a heavy burden placed on the shoulders of someone like Jacob Slavin to try and kill a lot of this. And look, they've got to have some confidence that their firepower is just as good as Canada.
Yeah, totally fair. Let's move along. We're going to talk more Canada and Sweden tomorrow when it's the first game day of this Four Nations Face-Off, but let's dig a little bit deeper on some of these rosters. I thought a great piece went up at dailyfaceoff.com the other day outlining some potential dark horses for each of these teams. And let's maybe start with Team Finland, where Patrick Laine, who, hey, he's getting a stay in Montreal. He's comfortable in this building. Stephen Ellis had him as a dark horse. I'll be honest, I think I kind of disagree with that.
I do too.
I don't think Patrick Laine, I don't know if keep up is the right word, but you just mentioned how good and how well this Finnish team can think the game. I don't get that vibe from Patrick Laine. And best on best, I wonder if he's going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Yeah, and I also just look at the last 10 to 15, 20 games that Patrick Laine has played this season, and he has really, really struggled for the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. So not entering on a very confident note. If I'm looking for a dark horse from Team Finland, I mean, has anyone really been talking much about Roope Hintz? I mean, we see every playoffs time and time again. I know he's one of the true stars of that team, but he's also further down their lineup. So I'm wondering if he can be a guy that does some damage for Team Finland.
For Team Canada, Matt Larkin had Sam Bennett as a guy who can go create some energy and maybe
also not seeing it. Look at his numbers since he was named to this team.
He's not been good over the last 20-some games for the Florida Panthers. The offense has dried up. The guy I was thinking of, and listen, maybe this is hard to call him a dark horse considering he's a star, but all these guys are stars in their own right. I think Brad Marchand's going to be a guy who I think potentially moves up the lineup at some point in this tournament, but I think he'll be a real source of energy for Team Canada.
No one's really been talking about him.
No?
And he's actually had a really productive season for the
Yep.
Boston Bruins after a slow start to this year, too. I think he's a great candidate. I would also throw Anthony Seravalli at you, not from a production standpoint, but from a shutdown standpoint. There's a reason why on a John Cooper coach team, Anthony Seravalli not only made it, but is expected to play a pretty significant role. Two-time Stanley Cup winning coach knows what he's getting out of someone like Seravalli. So I that's who I would look at as a potential dark horse to be a guy that really is a difference maker in this tournament.
Team Sweden, I think finding goals is going to be a thing for them. Not that that forward group doesn't have talent, but as we talked about in our forward rankings, they maybe aren't on the Team USA, Team Canada sort of level here. Some of these guys are going to have to step up and have really, really big games. I loved yesterday when we were talking about Lucas Raymond. It's like,
Man,
young guy who could
third
seize
line
the moment.
right wing there. Like it's like, come on.
That whole third line, I think, is my dark horse.
He's on track for 90-plus points, and I love
Crazy.
the heaviness that Joel Eriksson-Ek brings to his game in this tournament. You're right. Like, this Sweden forward group is really quite something. They're going to be a handful, but I'm curious about the guy at the very top of the lineup, Elias Pettersson. Dreadful season for the Vancouver Canucks.
Dreadful 18 months.
And he's right in the center. He's in the eye of the hurricane.
Yep.
Does coming here in Montreal, playing with the best players from his country and against the best players in the world, does that raise his game? And is that something that he could possibly take back to the Canucks later?
Yeah, totally fair. Yesterday, we talked about a couple of options on Team USA. This morning on the DFO Rundown, you talked about Vincent Trocheck as a guy you're keeping an eye on. I love Brady Tkachuk in that third line role. I think he is the best player that's currently slotted in a bottom six position in this tournament. Anyone else on Team USA you want to give some love to?
Dylan Larkin.
Okay.
League leader in power play goals.
Yep.
Not on either power play unit.
Just crazy.
Mike Sullivan reminded this morning, just because he's not there now doesn't mean you won't see him. And that's really going to be another fascinating thing to look at when it comes to this tournament is, hey, you can write these lines on the back of a cocktail napkin. You can toy around with them all summer and leading into this tournament. How long do you give them?
Yeah.
And that's for every coach that you have to ask that question to in this tournament. How much patience do you provide in a short tournament where a period and a half or 2 periods can decide the whole thing?
Yeah, that's totally fair. Before we get to Carter Hutton, and again, we are looking for some inbox questions as well, so feel free to drop those into the YouTube with the hashtag AskDFO. Let's play a little overreaction game. Frank, I got a couple of takes I want to throw your way, and you're going to grade them, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, that is absolutely insane, Tyler. What are you talking about? Never in a million years. 1 being, no, I actually think that will happen. Mitch Marner will not finish this tournament on Connor McDavid's wing. Where do you come out on that? 1, will it happen? 10, is it crazy?
A 4 or a 5. I think there's a real chance that you see everything shuffled around. I mean, look, this is a fascinating, if I'm John Cooper, I think he might have the toughest whole tournament. And I'm including the management group. The hard part wasn't picking this team. The hard part is coaching this team. And it's great that he has some talented help around him to do it. But making these decisions and doing it in real time, I also think, and I mentioned this on Monday night's preview show, Canada's really going to regret not having Zach Hyman. It's not for the goals. It's not for the chemistry. It's the dogged puck pursuit as the NHL's premier press player. So I think they're going to miss him. They've got obviously really talented pieces that they're putting around him, but Zach Hyman not being on this team was a miss.
I've been wrestling with the finish idea in this team, and there's a part of me that goes, you know what, I should give them more respect. This is not a sport that is played on paper. Crazy upsets can happen, but I'm going to say ultimately at the end of the day, they are just too overmatched. Finland allows over 4.5 goals in every game they play in this tournament. Where do you come out on that?
I'll give that a 3.
Okay.
I think there's a real chance that happens. I mean, again, just because it's a short tournament, we were talking about this on the DFO Rundown this morning, the idea of who's going to lead this tournament in scoring. My bet would be that the leading scorer, I don't know who it's going to be, whether it's Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, someone, whoever it is, they're going to have double digits after 4 games.
Wow.
Because you could have a 6-1 game. You could have, some of these blowouts that exist, regardless of who the opponent is. Like, don't count out that at some point with the talent on the ice that these games don't get out of hand.
I would love to see some sort of like a 6-5 thriller in one of these games, even the round robin ones. That'd be so much fun. Let's continue the goaltending conversation and get to the blue paint. It's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. You can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks through Charm and their Masterpiece program for more information and to look at their large selection of Canadian mined and created diamonds. Check them out, charmdiamondcenters.com. Always a pleasure to welcome our boy Carter Hutton into the show. And Carter, let's go through the goalie situations here. But I think the right place to start is at the top with Team USA. They have the best trio and they have the best goalie in Connor Hellebuyck. Now, the interesting part is that there are no back-to-backs in this tournament. So if you were on that Team USA bench, would you just be saying, hey, it's Connor Hellebuyck for hopefully all 4 games? Or would you be giving someone like Jake Ottinger a shot in one of these matchups?
Honestly, I feel like in a short tournament like this, you're going to have to go with Hellebuyck, right? You're going to have to get him to his game, get him where he needs to be. And, maybe you see Ottinger in a game, but in a short tournament like this, I think you want him to get his flow and get to the rhythm, especially being in enemy territory at this, right? This is going to be an aggressive time for Connor Hellebuyck. You look at all his success he's had, he hasn't had a lot of success in the playoff time. So I feel like for him, this is his mountain to climb, right? This is his chance to prove that he can get it done on the big stage. And this isn't a 7-game series, right? We look at his lack of playoff success recently, and especially, dating back to last year, getting pounded by the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the playoffs. This is a big chance for him to get the monkey off his back. So I definitely do believe he is the best goalie in this tournament. USA has the best depth. They have the whole complete package when it comes to goaltending. But in a short tournament like this, it becomes between the ears and that mental standpoint that I think for Connor Hellebuyck, he really needs to get to his game right away here.
So it's a totally different story, Huts, when you talk about Team Canada. And Coach John Cooper kind of played coy a little bit on Monday. He said, I know who my starter is going to be, but I'm not ready to announce it yet. If you were the Team Canada coaching staff, who would be in net for you game 1 against Sweden?
I think right now it's Adin Hill. I think right now is your guy. He starts Adin Hill. I think with his recent success in the playoffs and where he's been. And yes, we're talking about Jekyll and Hyde of 2 goalies, right? I think it's between him and Binnington, right? I think Sam Montembeault is a distant third. But in a short tournament like this, you have to kind of go with the guy and make your decision. So for me, it's Adin Hill. I think there's signs of life there. And what I love is the fact that I think Canada's defense core is a little bigger. They're going to be able to block it up a little bit, something that he's used to in Vegas. And I think for him, that will be important. Familiarity there, playing there. He's been in these situations and the recent Stanley Cup success, which is very important. And again, going back to what I said, this isn't the NHL anymore. This is a short tournament. These are a few games. You have to be hot at the right time. I think confidence-wise going into a 7-game series, who knows what you do here. But in this tournament, I think Adin Hill is your guy you go to. And if it fluctuates a little bit, if he has a rough game, maybe you roll with Binnington or you let him play it out because there's really no chance for error here in this short of a tournament.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Because there is such little margin for error, that being said, though, if Hill is good, do you roll with him game 2 or do you get Binnington's feet wet in this tournament just to make sure that he feels good? The other part of it is if you were to switch, you're throwing him in for a rivalry game against the U.S. on Saturday, which is a whole different ball of wax in general.
Frank, I truthfully think that if Adin Hill plays very well against Sweden in the first game, you're going to see him again, right? Especially with the rest, without the back-to-backs. I think that is the play. I think they've had enough time to be calculated and make that decisions. And even you look at the, why Logan Thompson was left off the team, right? And again, I don't think Logan Thompson would have been a difference maker. I think if we're sitting here, we're still Logan Thompson's potentially on the outside looking in to starting in this game. But the fact of the matter is in this short tournament, you have to play the hot hand. And I think if Adin Hill plays well right out of the gate, they're going to be quick to just keep rolling with him.
Let's go over to Finland, where we talked a little bit earlier in the show about UC Saros and, how you even compare Finland to Sweden. And if it's a what have you done for me lately conversation, UC Saros, he's not ranking ahead of those 2 guys in Sweden. But I want to talk a bit about his up and down play this year. How much of it is Saros actually struggling? How much of it is the fact that the team in front of him in Nashville just hasn't been good this year?
I think it's a bit of most, right? I think UC Saros is a very consistent goalie. He does a lot of things well, and what he doesn't make up for in size, he makes up in game management, right? Now, this is a great example, kind of segueing into it here. The fact of the matter is, Nashville Predators on paper this year, we love them, right? So this is a great example of what we're going to see in this Four Nations Cup. On paper, we analyze it to death. Wow, they're so good. This is awesome. But how do they gel? How does it gel? How does it fit as a team? And I think the Predators example after free agency, we all thought they won it. They added depth. They added all these stars, and it doesn't work, right? So with Finland, we're known that they're going to work hard. They're going to make teams hard. And a guy like Sasha Barkov out there defending, it's going to give them a chance. I think the Miro Heiskanen loss is going to kill them. But UC Saros is a goalie. He's coming in with 5 straight losses. He hasn't been great this year. He's under 900 save percentage. But there's one thing UC Saros can do is it can be streaky. He can get hot at the right times. We've seen this. We saw the run they went on last year. So this is definitely a team that I wouldn't count out by any means. But in that same sense, we have to find a team that can gel quickly. Yes, it's a star-studded cast between the U.S. and Canada, but whoever can find that game in depth-wise is going to be more important in my opinion.
If Linus Ullmark was healthy, would he be starting for you in game 1 for Sweden? And I'm going to take it a step further. Even though he hasn't played in the NHL, he's obviously been getting close. Would you put him in?
I think it's Gustafsson Nets to start, truthfully, Frank. I think just the way he's played as of late has been very good. And Linus coming back from injury has given up 7 in the last 2 games. I definitely do agree with you if Linus has been healthy and doesn't have that back issue if he stays there. But I feel like this is a shorter leash than we see in that Binnington Hill situation, right? Where both guys are kind of been sputtering a bit, where when you have Linus Ullmark not as your go-to guy, I feel like you're going to be quick to draw him in if you can, and maybe you get a chance to see him. But I also think where they're at, judging the way practice has gone and obviously his health, where he is at just as a goalie, I think you got to be quick to get Linus Ullmark in there because he could be the X factor in this tournament, just like I think Philip Gustafsson could be. These are 2 of the goalies that I don't think get a ton of credit coming in, have played in a lot of good situations, and this is going to be a chance for them to really show that they can push Team Sweden over the top here.
It's interesting, though. You mentioned that you think Adin Hill should get a longer leash. Why is that?
I just think because of the fluctuation of getting a guy going at this point, right? I think where I get Adin Hill struggles right away, you have to go to him. But in the short time span, you don't really have a guy that's just an absolute number one. Where I think when we look back in recent years and you had Marty Brodeur and you had Roberto Luongo and Curtis Joseph, all these great Canadian goalies, we don't really have that right now. Where I feel like if Hellebuck played really bad, I'd be quicker to go to Jake Ottinger, right? Where you have a guy that has playoff success. Ottinger has been very good in the playoffs. So I guess my take of it is Canada doesn't really have that star set in no one. So you just need someone that can be hot at the right time. And again, I think Binnington has the mental capacity to go in and play well. And I think Binnington also is a player that kind of carries that chip on his shoulder. He has a little bit of an arrogance to his game and cockiness. And we've seen it so many times, which could suit him very well if he has to get thrown into the USA-Canada rival matchup on Saturday night. Trust me, this is a guy that's going to go out there with swagger and he's going to be able to get it done. So I feel like that's a good situation for Canada. But overall, having the stars on the other teams, I think with depth, at least 2 guys, it gives them better options.
Yeah, I think what's going to be fascinating, like obviously whether it's Hill or Binnington, if they play great, 1 goal against Sweden, your choice is very easy. If they give up 6 goals, your choice is very easy. You're going to the other guy. But what if it's that middle ground, right? What if it's 4 goals on 30 shots, but you win 5-4? Do you sit there and be like, we got to pull the plug, go to the other guy? Fascinating.
I just think there's something to be said about what Hutz is saying about trying to instill that confidence. Like, not that Hill doesn't have it. Binnington has it if you got to turn to him, because I don't know that there's a more blindly confident goalie in the NHL than Jordan Binnington, but just be curious to see. There's no margin for error. Like you gotta make the decision and you gotta be definitive.
Who's your gold medal pick, Hutz?
I got to go with Canada, right? I'm born and bred. This is my team. I think they're still very good up front. I think, like Frank talked about, getting the puck off Canada is going to be tricky. And I think the loss of Quinn Hughes is going to be huge, right? And until Hellebuck can get over that hump of playing good in the big game, and I love it. And for me, I guess maybe Adin Hill's game, I think, translates because of the decor, because of the way he's going to defend. And that's something he's been playing behind in Vegas for a lot of years now.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. As always, man, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on and enjoy the hockey.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Always a pleasure to have Carter Hutton on the show here. Frank, as we continue along to our daily face-off inbox question, let me throw you something we got our eyes on today, the trophy. What do you make of the Four Nations face-off trophy? And players will also be getting gold medals.
It's a little old-timey.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if they're trying to create a feel that there's a vibe or history to this. I like it. It's you get a peek at it here. It's a good-looking trophy.
Yeah, it's good.
Probably very expensive.
Yeah, probably very expensive. And who knows? Maybe this is weirdly the only time we ever see this trophy get won. Which
I'll tell you what, though, whatever the case, this is way better than the last 2 World Cup of Hockey trophies, which were just galaxy brained.
Yeah, totally.
This at least, it looks like a Grey Cup light.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good comparison. It does give me a little bit of the Grey Cup vibes. Carousel's in our YouTube chat watching along from France, Frank. They wanted to know, ask DFO, what goalie gets shelled first? I mean, easy pick is Saros, unfortunately. I hate that we're piling on the Finns, though.
Yeah, but it's just because of the defense in front of him, right?
Yeah.
I made this point earlier on the DFO rundown with Jason Gregor. This Finnish defense core is not a Stanley Cup playoff defense core, let alone going up against the best, the 1%ers in the NHL.
Yeah, that is totally fair. If you had to set an over-under for total amount of goalies we see in this tournament, what would you set it at?
6.5.
6.5. So 4 teams will will you see a Saros pull? Will you see the second goalie in Sweden? Will you see a second goalie?
Will you see a second goalie start in Canada? Will you see
Yeah.
a second goalie start for Sweden? Like, I think all legitimate questions.
That's totally fair. Let's move along to our daily bets brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today and use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. What team can have a perfect round robin, Frank? I went and I cooked up the parlay on Bet365. Canada going 3-0, USA going 3-0. The odds are interesting. Plus 220 for Team Canada to go all the way through. And for Team USA, it works out to about plus 269. Do you like any of those price points on the full parlay to see them go all the way? 279, 231. There's the numbers.
Honestly, it's not enough juice to think that all these teams or either one of these teams is going to go undefeated.
If you do puck line for the Finland games, it does not quite double them, but it pushes them into the plus 300 range.
The biggest question I have is the first game of the tournament for Canada. I think minus 245 is not good value on Canada, and I would be playing Sweden in that case. If you said to me you have to make a bet, Sweden or Canada at those odds, I would take Sweden.
And if there is going to be a stunner, the idea of it coming on night one of the tournament.
That would be it.
Yeah, it would be.
You could also see ramped up Bell Center. They roll them. Like, again, I wouldn't touch it, but if I had to pick, gun to my head, I'm going Sweden.
Fair enough. We'll have some more bets tomorrow when we do our game day preview for Canada. Sweden, Frank, to wrap up the show, I wanted to shine some light on Team USA having Guy Gaudreau out for their skate today.
Yeah, and such a nice moment. Mike Sullivan was talking about the idea that, hey, they wanted to have Guy Gaudreau's input. It's obvious that Johnny Gaudreau would have been on this Team USA team and just means so much to the USA hockey program in general. A couple of these guys had a chance to play with Johnny Gaudreau at World Championships, World Juniors. Just a beloved teammate, and obviously we all miss him and Matthew. And so great to have Guy Gaudreau on the ice at dinner last night for the team dinner. The players had asked, Bill Guerin was saying the players had asked if Guy Gaudreau could come to get to dinner as well. So, look, just a special moment and special next couple weeks because, obviously the Columbus Blue Jackets have been carrying Johnny Gaudreau with them all season long. You're going to see Team USA doing the same.
Yeah, and I loved in that picture we saw them all out at dinner. You can almost just see the pride in Guy holding that Gaudreau jersey up and the big smile on his face. It brings a bit of a tear to your eye. That is a wrap on our show, Frank. Tomorrow, finally game day here. We're right behind us at the Bell Center. We are going to be, again, watching best on best hockey for the first time.
Let's go.
Yeah, for the first time in almost a decade. A big shout out to our friends at Lacage for having us in for today's show. We're going to be set up here holding court all week as the tournament kicks off in Montreal. Everybody in the YouTube, appreciate your questions as always. For our producer, Pat Puff, have a good afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you like that video, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube because we have tons of great content, from exclusive interviews on the sheet with Jeff Merrick to instant analysis and breaking news with our Daily Faceoff insider, Frank Seravalli, on Daily Faceoff Live, to your go-to morning duo, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen on Morning Cup of Hockey. Plenty of great content, wall-to-wall, team-to-team, all the way across the entire league. And you won't miss it if you subscribe.